Saturn, please grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's the day of Helios and the hour of Mercury. I'm Rev Dev, and you're listening to Selene's Gateway Morning Edition. For today's hymn, we're sticking to the Thomas Taylor translations of the Orphic hymns. And for today, we sing the praise to the sun, and it goes as follows. Hear golden Titan, whose eternal eye with matchless sight illuminates the sky, native unwearied in diffusing light, and to all eyes the object of delight. Lord of the seasons, beaming light from far, Sonorous dancing in the four-yok'd car, with the right hand and the source of morning light, and with thy left the father of the night. Agile and vig'rous, venerable sun, fiery and bright around the heavens you run, foe to the wicked, but the good man's guide, o'er all his steps propitious you preside. With various sounding golden lyre 'tis thine to fill the world with harmony divine. Father of ages, guide of prosperous deeds, the world's commander borne by lucid steeds, immortal Jove, flute playing, bearing light, source of existence, pure and fiery bright, bearer of fruit, almighty Lord of years, agile and warm, whom every power reveres, bright eye, that round the world incessant flies, doomed with fair fulged rays to set and rise, dispensing justice, lover to the stream, the world's greatest master, and over all supreme, faithful defender, and the eye of right, of steeds the ruler, and of life the light, with sounding whip for fiery steeds you guide, when in the glittering car of day you ride. Propitious on these mystics' labors, please shine, and bless my suppliants with a life divine. And so it is. And so today, let's take a look at what the tides tables are, what our shadow hours are for the day. We're going to look at a tarot card and talk about today's transits. So let's get started with the tides. For the first tide, we had the low tide come in at around 5:27 a.m. The second tide was our first high tide for the day, which peaks at 8:30 a.m. The next low tide bottoms out at 6:21 p.m., and the last high tide for the night will peak at about 10:29 p.m. As always, these tide times are the same for each time zone and don't need to be adjusted for zones because they're relative to where the moon is going to be in your area. The shadow hour for the daytime is from 6:30 p.m. till nightfall and will be felt the strongest by those with the lunar nodes in Leo or co-present with the sun. The shadow hour for the night hours is from 11:56 p.m. till 1:06 a.m. This time will be felt strongest by those with the nodes in Libra or Taurus or with Venus co-present. As always, these are great hours to work on remediation and to simply observe the frustrations or dreams that may occur. For the whole list of shadow days and hours, as well as an explanation, please download Selene's Almanac Spring Quarter from my Patreon. You will also find an explanation for the energy tides that flow with the moon. Our transit for the day is we have the moon ending its void of sign at around 12:06 p.m. That's when the moon will enter its exile into Capricorn. It will almost immediately make a square with Neptune, though it will be later in the afternoon. But the main transit we want to focus on today is Mercury in Taurus square Pluto in Aquarius, which happens at around 3:08 p.m. or 6:08 p.m. East Coast time. This is happening just a little around 24 hours before Pluto's stationing direct officially. So Pluto's come to a standstill. The outer planets, so uh, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they all spend about a third of the year retrograde. So the whole retrograde cycle itself isn't as important as the moments when they station retrograde and station direct. These are usually pivotal moments. Pivotal is used a lot in astrology because it's first of all used to describe the angles in a natal chart. So the ascendant, MC, descendant, and IC. These are the changing positions on the astrology wheel. And then also the pivotal places of the year are the equinoxes and solstices. So the summer solstice, winter solstice, and the fall and spring equinox uh, for both the northern and southern hemisphere. These are considered pivotal or changing places where the Earth's relationship to the sun takes on a significantly drastic approach. So when the outer planets station retrograde, they're pivotal. They're as significant as sunrise, or they're as significant as the equinox or summer solstices. These energy changes are all important, so they'll be important to recognize. And what's interesting is that Mercury is making this square to Pluto during this process. So we should feel that announcement or feel that bringing that into awareness or consciousness, both in our lives and also out in the mundane world. So, so what does this mean? What is this about? Well, let's talk about Mercury. Mercury is about communication, the magic of words, numbers, and images, the impressions we leave on others and take onto ourselves. Mercury helps us through all of life's transitions and is the divine messenger from all the realms. And so then we have Pluto, which we've come to understand. You know, Pluto is a relatively young uh, body for the astrological consciousness, though we have its name, the planetary, the minor, the dwarf planet Pluto. We have its name attached to this god, this ancient god of the underworld. But as far as like our observance of it, we've only really known of its existence since the 1930s. So what a lot of us have done and what we rely on is astrologers who've looked back into the past and seen where Pluto has shown itself as far as a way to kind of see what parts of consciousness or global events that Pluto's embodied. And so what we've kind of landed on as a collective is that Pluto brings the necessary things to the surface. The cycles don't always have to be ruptures, though, from my understanding. Um, but they can be patterns of drastic transformation. Because if Pluto goes unwatched, if the Pluto topics in your life go unwatched or its messages get ignored, then breakthroughs may happen when they are least invited to. And that's where this like rupturous energy comes through. Because the Western mind sees darkness and evil as correlated, like that dark things are evil or that nighttime possesses evil things, then then we tend to hide. The Western mind tends to hide from topics that could be the most healing and transformative for us as a collective. We often struggle with a lot of things that we label as dark, or maybe things that happen in darkness or hidden away as things that we should not pay attention to or not talk about as a collective. And so what this also means is that actual corruption and corrosion in our social order uh, can get masked or shield itself with other things like sexuality, death, and fear. So sexuality and death and fear are natural things for us to explore as a collective, as people, but things like corruption and corrosion, people who are actions and people and things that actually have a negative intention against the collective can use sexuality, death, and fear as ways of like uh obscuring their presence or distracting us or pointing us in a different direction. I think that uh it's pretty clear that sexuality and identity politics have become a scapegoat for getting people to focus on other issues instead of the corruption that we're experiencing in our oligarchy and in the politics of today. And this isn't like just a this year thing, this is just a constant tool used by corruption as a way of distracting us. And so uh, what I think this ends up doing it to us is it because of our association with darkness in this way, it points us towards being afraid of the wolf in the that's supposedly in the forest when there's a wolf in sheep's clothing amongst us. And so when you combine these two things together, Mercury, this magical communicator, this divine transmuter between worlds and somebody who ushers us back and forth between all these different dimensions, and then Pluto that helps guide us through the subconscious realms and allows us to find deeper principles hidden in our reality. We might have maybe some corruption exposed, maybe some sheep's clothing being unveiled, or maybe we're going to be able to get some insights on some things that we need to look at internally, um, and that we shouldn't let them go ignored. So maybe if you come across something that reminds you of something deeper, or maybe you have a conversation with somebody that exposes something you may not have known before, this is a good time to utilize that energy for that exploration. Maybe a meditation, maybe talking to your therapy or trauma counselor about some deep issues. Maybe you'll have some revelations. Or maybe it's a good time to come clean about something. Maybe even just to yourself through writing an honest letter to yourself and then maybe burning it, or things of that nature. Today's energy is really good for those types of things. And so the tarot card that we have for the day is the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of Fortune helps us move through cycles of change. I often have to remind myself that in the tarot, the Wheel of Fortune is a positive card. This is from my own uh issues of melancholy or my own issues of depression or trauma, things of that nature. Uh Not that I look at the Wheel of Fortune and instantly think, "Oh no, something bad's going to happen." But I just need to be reminded to look for the positive in things instead of always trying to problem solve into things, looking for uh pathways through obstacles, that like not every motion is a pathway of obstacles, though the Wheel of Fortune can connote can talk about like the changing of fate. The Wheel of Fortune card itself is supposed to be an implication of luck. And we see that in the keywords. And so these are from the original Rider-Waite Smith deck. The keywords are destiny, fortune, success, luck, felicity, increase, abundance, and superfluity. I think it's interesting because some of these are supposed to be for the reverse side. And like today we use, and so one of a couple of the words from the reverse side is abundance and superfluity. And I just think that this is definitely a holdover of the early 1900s of like excess being a negative thing, whereas like in a lot of spiritual circles today, there we're often talking about like wanting to have an abundance or having a connection to abundance, or how there's always an abundance, that we need to allow to flow through us. Um, and I think that that's interesting that that's the reverse meaning for the Wheel of Fortune. And so, one of the other things that I like to point out about the Wheel of Fortune card is that there's an implication that it's when you're looking at it, when you're facing the Wheel of Fortune card, there's an implication that it's turning counterclockwise. And I'm pointing this out for a very specific reason, and that's that counterclockwise motion is lunar motion. And it's all like, and what I mean by that is the changing of the phases of the moon are seen and start in the west and then progress away from the west. So, thus, if you're facing south, where you would see the moon, because if you're facing north, you're not going to find the moon. If you're facing south, you would look to the west for the first visible moon after the dark moon. And then in counterclockwise motion throughout the days, it gains in light until as the sun is setting in the west, the full moon is rising in the east. So it's a counterclockwise motion. Whereas like the sun every day travels in the same way that our clocks do and is a mirror of that. Counterclockwise motion is also the kind of like the motion of shadows. If you're facing south and you have a sundial in front of you, then as the sun travels across the sky in clockwork motion, the uh the sundial is going to go the opposite direction, and so or continue the same motion. Uh Regardless, uh counterclockwise is lunar motion. It's also the motion that the planets move, and it's also the motion that the sun travels on an annual perspective. Anyway, I just want you to consider those things when you're looking at the Wheel of Fortune card. But enough of my thoughts. Let's move on to what the Wheel of Fortune says from the Journey of Oz and Wonderland deck. And the key words, what's interesting, no, sorry. So what's interesting about the Journey of Oz and Wonderland deck is that we get the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. And I really love that. And so because the white rabbit is so much involved with time. And so in this card, the white rabbit is surrounded by the clocks that vex him so much. So here's from the author. The keywords they give is fate, destiny, time, mystery, chance, curiosity, luck, fortune, cycles, divine timing, and karma. And it starts with a little nice quote from the book. Alice started to her feet, for it flashed across her mind that she had never before seen a rabbit with a watch, and burning with curiosity, she ran across the field after it, and fortunately was just in time to see it pop down a large rabbit hole under the hedge. The white rabbit, ever tardy, dashed through the forest, late for the Mad Hatter's tea party at 2 o'clock. He tripped but swiftly recovered. A curious little girl by the river watched as he continued to scurry away. The white rabbit symbolizes embracing new experiences amid uncertainty, trust in the universal timing, and to have faith that the opportunities, even the mad ones, contribute to personal growth. When in reverse, the white rabbit signifies fear of change and a need for control, leading to anxiety and stagnation. Embrace change, as it is an inevitable part of life's karmic flow. And with that, I leave you, my friends, and I say, as always, we will wrap up just as we have begun and ask, dear Saturn, please grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. May the fire inside guide you. I'm Rev Dev, and you've been listening to Sereny's Gateway Morning Edition. You can find my almanac at Patreon at Sereny's Gateway. You can schedule a tarot or astrology reading from me at selenysgateway.com, and on social media, I'm known as the Esoteric Butcher.